Hey everybody, welcome back to Hard for Games. I'm your host Tony, and today, unfortunately, I have some bad news. A month or so back, some news broke. There was a potential Wind Waker prototype. This guy right here. There's some images that were popped up online, kind of your basic camera to TV images, and got a little bit of press as well on the various Zelda websites, and people were excited, and reasonably so. I mean, who wouldn't be happy about another opportunity to sail the Great Sea, but this time in a version that was slightly earlier, slightly different, and maybe had some content that ultimately maybe we've never seen before. But unfortunately, I'm here to tell you that it's fake. Now, before I go any further, I do want to say that MelonSpeedruns and Gamma helped me out with this. Really, they were the brains behind the operation. I got a hold of the disc, I did everything physically with my hands that they needed me to do, but basically, they were the mental process behind the whole thing. So thank you so much, guys, and I know that when I presented this to you, we thought that we had gotten a hold of a prototype and we were excited and all that good stuff, so I apologize that it kind of turned out the way it did. However, hopefully, as we prove that this is truly a hoax, it'll be a cautionary tale, both to myself, but also to all of you out there. So let's take a look at what this thing isn't before we take a look at what it is. It is an NR disc, to be played on an NR reader, which is sort of this teal GameCube you see here. It's a writable optical media. Looks very similar to the DVDs that you burned back in the day. NR discs can't be read on GameCubes, retail GameCubes, and retail GameCube discs can't be read on NR readers. So both GameCubes, but this one was used for development, this is retail, and the media is not swappable. Taking a look at this, you can see the sticker here. It says Nintendo, LOZ, WW, internal. So Legend of Zelda Wind Waker. Build date 04/12/02. So we have April 12th, 02. Sticker's a little bit worn. Looks like it could be from the year 2002. All intents and purposes, I mean, it looks reasonably real at first. We're going to kind of cycle back to these numbers and this sticker a little bit later. So this is what got people excited here. So here's what's different, right? It has a different logo. Zelda is gold, and then it says Nintendo, and it also says confidential right here. Then there's one more difference. If you pop this into the third controller slot, you have some debug features. There we go. The Debug Console or the Control Console. Basically a way to monitor memory use. And we actually covered this in our Wind Waker Beta Quest episode. And that's not just a plug for a previous episode. It's to showcase that this was actually in the retail version of the game. It just wasn't accessible unless you used action replay codes, which is important to remember here. So the most damning piece of evidence that it's fake is the copy date. Now the copy date is basically the date that is generated when everything is compiled and pieced together. I'm not doing a great job of sort of the tech speak regarding this, but suffice to say it's like a fingerprint for the disc. And the copy date here is the exact same as the retail release. And that is February 19th, 2003. So that's pretty rough. We should know then and there with the copy date that it is in fact a fake, but let's keep diving in. So the second issue that Gamma and MelonSpeedruns noticed was with the file types for these fonts that are different.
Basically, the GameCube has different images formats, like Windows. So on Windows, you have PNG files, JPEG, bitmap, all of those. But what happens on GameCube is that they don't have the same name at all. So instead of having, let's say, a PNG file, we're going to have a C8 file. So with the Wind Waker logo, you can see on the title screen, that logo is actually in the C8 format that the GameCube can read. And this is the case in all versions of Wind Waker. However, in the fake disc version, the format has been changed to RGB 583, which is a format that no other version has. So at first we were like, okay, maybe Nintendo changed the logo's format on development discs. So we did some research and we found a tool called TGA to BTI, which allows Windows images to be converted to GameCube images. We found out that TGA to BTI didn't support the C8 format, but it did support the RGB 5H3 format that the fake disc has. After converting a few images with this tool, we realized that both the fake logo and our images we converted look exactly the same when we look through it in a hex editor. So what we think happened is that the hacker just used that tool to convert the logo.
So at this point, I really wanted this thing to be real. So, also look at this. You're looking at the demo here, and it has the real logo. I mean, it's kind of like another thing there, but regardless, I wanted this thing to be real, okay? So I postulated, playing devil's advocate with the team here, if a hacker could do this, why couldn't someone at Nintendo? Let's say that they were doing some sort of debugging post-launch, and in my sort of prototype adventures, I've noticed some evidence of developers doing debugging after the game's been released, so I thought that maybe this was a possibility. Melon educated me at this point and essentially said that anytime Nintendo creates anything regarding the GameCube, regarding different versions of their games, it always has a unique copy date. It always has its unique fingerprint. They don't build and compile games like hackers build their ISOs out. It just isn't the same process. So it would never be the case. But let's go ahead and continue to dive deeper, because there are a few more other minor details to showcase that this thing is in fact a fake. So circling back around to the disc itself, we have a huge issue because the copy date doesn't match the date on the label. So any sort of thought process that maybe this was some sort of internal version that utilized the retail version and just modified it for an internal purpose is completely shattered. Because as far as I'm aware, NR discs are not rewritable. Meaning that someone deliberately created a label for well in advance of the retail release and stuck it on there, trying to pass it off as an earlier version. And, you know, just a sort of a practicality standpoint, let's say you're working at Nintendo, and let's say NR discs were rewritable. Why would you need to rewrite an NR discs? You should have stacks of them. That wouldn't be a scarcity. Furthermore, if you remember back in the day when you burned DVDs, how often did you create the label before you burned it? You normally burned it, you checked it, then you put a label on it. How often did you create a label for a disc a year in advance of burning it? Maybe like never? Probably never you did that. So it just doesn't make any sense, obviously. I know I'm focusing on minor details here, but you know, they kind of all add up, so to speak. A few other things, probably less important here. It has a label. Anytime I've seen NR discs, anytime my team had seen NR discs, it always had just been chicken scratch marker. Never actually had like an official sticker label that we've seen before. Doesn't mean that it never happened, just means that we have never seen them. Also, it refers to itself as WW, Wind Waker. Normally, Nintendo referred to it as TWW, The Wind Waker. There's just little minor things that are wrong with the label. So I think the best takeaway for this is probably as a cautionary tale. You know, this thing could have been floating around in collector circles for years and years and years. Who knows? But I wanted it to be real. I wanted to showcase something really cool to all of you, but turns out it just sort of fell flat. But regardless, I think really with anything you buy, do your proper due diligence, make sure that what you have is legitimate, and just be careful out there. I think it's probably the best takeaway. Either way, thank you so much for watching. If you'd like to support the show, we do have a Patreon and a Spreadshirt t-shirt store. But if that's not your bag, a like, comment, share would be awesome. And we'll see you guys next time. Sad cheers. Sad cheers. Thank you again for watching. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to give it a like and a share, and we will see you guys next time.